Good morning, folks, and welcome to another edition of the Sal Greco Show. And I'm your host, Sal Greco. Thank you all for being here. Obviously, is a new time slot. So I see Chronicles of the Collapse, Terry Murnane, Frankie Palaguacci, Sleepy Joe, 92 Charlie. Shout out to all of you for being here. Obviously, there was a lot that happened in the last 48 hours. We'll get to that. Also, if you can, please, you're watching on YouTube on the Sal Greco Show, please hit that like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification button as well. If you're watching on Rumble right now for the first time ever, live on Rumble on the Sal Greco Show Rumble channel, hit the Rumble button, hit the like button. And if you're watching on X, streaming all over the world right now, please hit the like button and share this out, especially to those that you know that are in a low information bubble, because we will have a lot to get to momentarily in regards to a big incident that happened in Minnesota. And there's so many people commenting about this. And I understand every side of the ledger per se, but I don't understand all the rhetoric I'm hearing. It's kind of crazy with some things. But before I get to that, I wanted to show something. I pull this out. I read about a New Haven police chief that's investigated over funds. So this is a post I put. This is the exact behavior that has helped erode the public's trust in law enforcement. As Joe Pesci said when playing the character Nicky Santoro on screen in the movie Casino, it's always about the dollar. And this is a former New Haven police chief investigated over alleged stolen funds. This was in the Daily News, written by David Matthews. Connecticut State Police and the State Attorney's Office has opened an investigation to former New Haven Police Chief Carl Jacobson over allegations that he stole public funds. Jacobson retired effective immediately on Monday after he was confronted by Mayor Justin Eliker and admitted to misusing the money, Eliker told reporters. According to the mayor, a number of officers had flagged irregularities with an account that pays for the city's confidential informant program. Those officers notified the 3 assistant chiefs in the department, who then took their concerns to Eliker. The ex-chief was called into a meeting with the mayor where he was to be placed on administrative leave, but he handed in his retirement paperwork instead. Eliker said Jacobson became the police chief in 2022, and his contract was set to expire at the end of January. Officials did not disclose how much money was taken. Isn't that interesting? From the account, how long the funds had been missing or what they had been used for as of Tuesday. There did not appear to be any indication that anyone else was involved in the scheme. Assistant Chief David Zanelli has been appointed to the acting New Haven police chief. So this is why people don't trust, police, is because of stupid actions like this, and the actions of one will now spread on to others. And it's not fair, So I hope this guy, it gets pushed, gets prosecuted to full extent to the law. I mean, right here, if you remember the NYPD, what did we have? There's Jeffrey Madry. There's the former illustrious mayor of New York City, Eric Adams. And now that's the current chief of department, Michael LePetri. But if you remember, there was a ton of scandals in the NYPD that mirror this scandal. So the police department should have to, police themselves, you would think. But like an incident like this, if there's money missing, you're going to have to pay, whether it's out of your own pocket, maybe your pension, wherever it is, and then go to jail, because it's not right stealing from taxpayers. But now, if you're shopping out there, right, why would you shop with people that are, not patriotic when you can shop with patriots? So if you can, go to myfreedomcard.com/the Sal Greco Show, shop with patriots. Instead of going to the supermarket and you're shopping with all your kids and your significant other and they're chasing your kids around, you could just order everything online and make it come to your home. I think that's a lot easier. And these people support law enforcement, the sanitation worker, the fire department. So myfreedomcard.com/the Sal Greco Show. And also, I don't get my news from the major we'll say search engines, because it's clearly always biased. So why do that when you could just go to Free Spoke? I know you surf the internet and you search for things on a search engine and you don't get what you're looking for. Well, I have a solution for you, and that's FreeSpoke. FreeSpoke is a search engine that does everything without all the restrictions and all the censorship, and there's no porn ads. FreeSpoke is about authenticity rather than agendas. Labels media bias, no intrusions or data leaks. No porn ads, like I said, unlimited, unbiased AI. Also, deep dive podcasting. You can look it up. Go to freespoke.app.link/Greco. Download the app. You could also use the same link to get 35% off the premium subscription, which would be well worth it. Try it out. freespoke.app.link/Greco. There you have it, folks. Greco 35 to get your 35% discount on the subscription. You get 35% off. And of course, you can use this to do things like AI or ChatGPT related activities. You pay about $20 a month there. Going to be paying a lot less here with FreeSpoke. So check that out. It's well worth it, and it's not biased. So now, without any further ado, this incident that took place in Minnesota, I'm just going to say, 6 years ago, I was in the NYPD when George Floyd happened. And George Floyd, if you remember, happened in not even a half a mile down the road from where this incident happened. But that swept through the country. It was the summer of love. Everything was burnt to the ground everywhere you look. There was pure chaos, including in New York City. I was involved in certain protests, and people were breaking stores, looting, assaulting police officers, assaulting, even I saw Curtis Lewer out there get his jaw broken. There was so much going on at that time. And that's the scene right now in Minnesota. But all of this now yesterday, just to give a bit of context here, Homeland Security, a.k.a. ICE, has gone out into Minnesota, and they're conducting law enforcement operations in Minneapolis. At the same time, in the same area, we are hearing about the Somali daycare centers, which is fraud galore. It has to do with the mayor and the governor, and Tim Walz has a bunch of issues and people getting subpoenaed. That's another issue. But no, if you listen to Kristi Noem, who's the Secretary of Homeland Security, ICE is not there to go after either undocumented Somalis or just the Somali daycare center. They've been there because there's a scam/fraud going on that it's completely separate from that other thing that's going on there. I mean, Minneapolis is a mess. We're going to get to that. They have issues with illegal immigrants committing crime. And it's more than just this part here where they're talking about child care centers accused of fraud. But this is separate. What they're looking at right now is completely separate in regards to the daycare center. So ICE was conducting lawful operations. Okay, and I believe their vehicle broke down. A couple of agents that were in their car, and it snows. So they were trying to do all this work. Meanwhile, they have their version of what's Cop Watch. They're ICE watchers. Probably really, people that want to watch what ICE does, every little, and I understand because people, you want to always see what law enforcement is doing, but you have to know your limitations and how far you could push things. You can be on the sidewalk, you could have your distance, you can scream off the top of your lungs, and I mean, if you don't want your voice the next day, you could act a fool on camera, but you can't continuously badger someone in their face. You can't shove your camera in their face. And may I remind you, in Minneapolis especially, your police department was, basically emasculated after the George Floyd incident. And you've gotten away with antagonizing and jumping in police officers' face. And that's okay because it's the city. But the federal government and federal agents don't go under the same guidelines as the police, where you could just run up to someone, and if they lay a finger on you, you're suing the police and the mayor and all that stuff. See, this is where you don't know procedures and laws. So, and I see onto NYS, the female was blocking him. Crazy to hear that she was a mother of 3 and hooked up with a chick. Yeah, apparently she's a lesbian on top of it. That was a caveat, a side note to everything. So there's a woman that was in this procession of protesters blocking the street, just antagonizing the hell out of these agents that are stuck in the car. And it was from the beginning of their presence, when their presence was known, all the way till when this incident occurs. So there's 2 angles to this incident. I'll show you the first one, the first video, which is the famous one. So we could play this. Let's play this.
No! Shame! Shame! Oh my fucking God! What the fuck? What the fuck? You just fucking, what the fuck did you do? You are fucking criminals!
There you go. There's Jane Camp out there.
What the fuck?
Jane the citizen.
What the fuck? What the actual fuck? You are fucking insane! What did you do? You! Shame! 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 Shame!
This woman sounds like she has serious, seriously disturbed. Look, the first video, as you can tell, you really can't see what happened. In the front of the vehicle, there was an ICE agent there, right in front of the vehicle. And I've been in this situation myself. Here is the ICE agent, the other ICE agent. That's right. Do you see that? He's talking to her in the car. You see in the very front, there is an ICE agent there. He gets to the car. Obviously, there's one on the side, one to his side. There's another one behind him. And you can't see it yet, but in the front of that vehicle, right there, see, there's an ICE agent from this angle. So, yes, Joel Ramirez in the chat, these are horrible tactics. But at the same time, I don't think ICE practices this, or these set of agents would have practiced car stops. But obviously, she's interfering with their operations. This is not the police department either. So you can't just do these things and think you could walk all over them in the city. So you don't see what she does is her foot is on the gas. So yeah, you're trying to get away, but at the same time, you try to run over that agent in the front, who, come to find out in the press conference with Kristi Noem, has been dragged by a car, I believe in the same neighborhood or the same area, was dragged by a car for doing exactly the same thing. Once again, these are really bad tactics. I mean, they're horrible. But I don't think they train you to do these things. So then there's a second video where you will see the vehicle actually does hit this officer. So you see there, this angle, it really has to be zoomed in, but I've watched this over and over again. The officer was hit by the car. Whether he hit his leg, his knee, he barely got out of the way just in time not to have completely been hit and, probably flung into the, side of the sidewalk or whatever. Now you're going to get into whether this shooting is justified or not. and there's going to be a lot of questions. You're not supposed to shoot a moving vehicle, right? You're not supposed to. I remember this in the NYPD. But she used the car as basically as a weapon, trying to run the agent over who happened to have his gun drawn. Again, the tactics are not going to be like what you expect. You don't see the police doing this on a regular basis because they're trained to do things differently. There's no training here. And on a caveat to that, the mayor put in, he has this whole sanctuary city policy, and you can run your city any way you want. But where there's a big ICE operation, that you notice that the police are never even around, not even to help them, but you basically need to keep the peace. It's called public safety, and they're not around. So ICE is out there. Only their personnel can help them in a situation where it occurs at the snap of your fingers. Something happens, it's just ICE out there. There's no police to come running and try to say, oh, God forbid someone gets hurt. They need routes to go to a hospital. The police are not around. So he said there's zero involvement or any kind of aid, even the most lowest part of aid, which is for the public. There is none from the police. So that's another issue that you have to remember with these guys. So then let's listen to the mayor, because the mayor of this, Jacob Frey, who's got, this guy has a lot to do with what's going on in Minneapolis. Let's listen to his little speech or his rhetoric.
To ICE, get the fuck out of Minneapolis. Your stated reason for being in this city is to create some kind of safety, and you are doing exactly the opposite. Somebody is dead. That's on you. This was an agent recklessly using power that resulted in somebody dying. To the family, I'm so deeply sorry. We're going to be working towards justice as quickly as we possibly can right now. And justice is what we've all got to get. We're going to make sure that in this very difficult moment, we do not take the bait that these ICE agents are trying to create and that the federal government, to be clear, wants.
People are going to want to exercise their First Amendment rights, but please do so safely and lawfully to ensure that we do not have any further tragedy in this city or destruction.
We can show them the kind of courage, bravery, love, and compassion that makes Minneapolis. Let's unite around hope and love and peace and getting justice.
Yeah. And you know, just here, Special Hagen said this: I'm not sure what the protocol is for agents in this situation. John Miller discussed it some yesterday, and he said that the agents had not complied with protocol. And I'm believing Eric Sanders in the comments saying that they have to do the same thing. I believe it was here. They have the same use of force policy, no shooting at a moving vehicle, much less one moving away. So again, this is a hot topic because of the circumstances surrounding this. So without any further ado, we know how Paul McCartney left the Beatles, held it together, but we are still held together because of my producer, Jack.
Yeah, so kind of it's interesting, the timeline on Frey's comments here, because right now he's being heralded as some sort of hero in Minneapolis, someone who's sticking up for the people, who's defending the person that was shot and killed. He's anti-ICE. He doesn't want deportations happening in his city, yada, yada, yada. But history will indicate that he's a man who likes to talk a lot, but doesn't really like to act. Because remember back in 2021, he said he banned the Minneapolis Police Department from conducting no-knock warrants. But you fast forward about a year to 2022, and that's when the shooting and killing of Amir Locke, to kind of jigger everyone's memory a little bit. Amir Locke was someone who was in his bed in his apartment in Minneapolis. Police entered his apartment with a warrant. They didn't knock on the door, though, and they shot and killed him. His cousin was suspected in a homicide case. There was a misunderstanding, all that good stuff. And when Frey was confronted about banning the no-knock warrant, something he said he had done a year prior, he walked out of the press conference. So this is someone who likes to pontificate and talk a lot of smack about what he's doing or about how he feels, but when it comes to actually acting, he's a real chicken. And I'm going to use that term nicely too.
Yeah. So I see people a lot in the comments. It's definitely dredging up a lot of feelings. And in my opinion, she drove towards that ICE agent. Remember that she's been following them for months. They basically, and the rhetoric coming from the mayor leading up to this, yesterday was bad. It was even worse over the last few months. Jacob Frey, who's the mayor of Minneapolis, has essentially been framing ICE as the villains, and that ICE is basically the end-all be-all of the issues in Minneapolis, and doesn't look in the mirror and realize that his own policies and his leadership ability is the real reason why Minneapolis is not running, we'll say straight. So he created a boogeyman, and that creates all the issues. And yes, the tactics are piss poor. I understand that. The tactics are bad. But in my opinion, those were lawful. Now, you're going to say you don't like that I don't think he should have shot her. I can't tell you Monday morning quarterback and something. I don't know what he saw, how he felt having a car coming right at him in this situation, but his gun was already drawn. And remember that the tactics and everything there was horrendous. Now, I don't know how they train these guys. There's going to be a lot more to come from that. But in the end, I understand they follow the same guidelines and all, but you realize you're facing the federal government and trying to sue the federal government, or it's already, you're already at this level where the bar is set so high. Because we could have said the same thing when Michael Byrd, who was a lieutenant Capitol Police, killed Ashley Babbitt, right? And you're seeing how hard it is to get to this civil rights and, whether he was justified in that shooting or not. But they cleared him in that. And good luck trying to sue the federal government. Like I said, it's like going through, it's worse than going through surgery the way they are. And this is going to end up the same way, whether anybody wants to, you want to fret about it or not. And in my opinion, again, she put her foot on the gas pedal and came straight at him. And the NYPD, you're not supposed to. They tell you, you can't be doing that. Federal guys fall under these different statutes, but once they get cleared, so is he going to get cleared? I don't know. We'll see. But I think that ultimately it's going to be like the same thing like the Ashley Babbitt incident. You didn't like what you saw. I definitely think that was horrendous. But they cleared that Capitol Police lieutenant, and ultimately going to do the same thing here. And that's just the way it rolls. But again, don't be harassing people 24/7 and trying to jump into their actions when they're taking law enforcement actions and expect, if something goes wrong that we go, oh, well, we have to feel sorry. If you see that, Jack, if you see that same incident, you see ICE coming around, are you going to start blocking the street and screaming and, with all these other people and then trying to interfere in that? Or are you just going to keep walking and say they're conducting law enforcement actions? If there's anything illegal or wrong, it'll be handled by the courts. I don't know. You tell me, Jack.
Well, I'm walking away from the situation because the ICE agents, a lot of people don't really understand this concept. The ICE agents are there carrying out a federally directed agenda. They're not doing this on their own judgment. They didn't make the decision to conduct ICE raids. They were being told to do this by people above them, right? So, it's not their decision-making process that's leading to these things happening. But in terms of this situation specifically, the ICE agent was justified in firing his gun because he was in a dangerous situation. The woman's car was coming right toward him, but it should not have resulted in a fatality. I know those 2 points might sound counterintuitive of one another, but both things can be true at once. Someone should not have lost their life over an incident like that, but the ICE agent also had to defend himself. This was one of those freak accidents where there also was not any protocols in place to try and mitigate the situation. There was a great comment here about maybe deploying spike strips and using that as a method to kind of remedy the situation. Perhaps that could have been a solution. where someone wouldn't have died. They could have tried to defuse it with multiple officers. Tactically speaking, it's very easy to Monday morning quarterback, especially for us non-law enforcement people who were never in these dangerous situations. It's very easy to speculate. I just hope that the officer gets the benefit of the doubt and public opinion doesn't sway the final decision. Because, again, both things are allowed to be true. Nobody should have died in an incident like this. You see the one officer go and grab her driver's side door and try and open it. Maybe two others should have gotten in front, told her to put the car in park, tried to talk to her more calmly. I don't know. It just seemed like it went from 0 to 100 very quickly.
Yeah. There's two good comments here. So Special Hagen said the other officer got hit by the truck, not the one who fired the shots. The question is whether they were injured and whether she was a threat to him or anyone else as she pulled off. From what I understand and what I'm seeing, the officer, or not, the agent that was in front of the vehicle that got hit by her vehicle, she drove in him, that's the one that fired the shot, not the one that was at the window. So just so we're clear, from my understanding, it was the officer or the agent in front of the vehicle with his gun drawn that was about to get hit. He's the one that fired the shot. I don't know about the guy talking. I did not see him pull out a weapon at any time. So if just so we're clear, and that changes the whole dynamic of everything. So, just to make that clear. Superior Mind said this comes down to close call analysis from the civilian sector and public servants like military personnel and local law. And I agree. Again, the law says you have to follow this protocol that you know when a vehicle is coming at you, you're not supposed to shoot at it, right? Or you can, depending on if the guy has he's firing a weapon. But listen, she came at him with the car. It's the agent in the front of the vehicle. It's not the one that was talking to her. Listen, I've done this like I don't know how many times, as you can see all my awards behind me. WI arrest and felony car stops. And the tactics, I understand, they are piss poor tactics. But again, you're going to find out that you're not suing the city of Minneapolis and the Minneapolis Police Department. You're trying to sue Homeland Security and the federal government if that's the route that their family wants to take. But again, everything I believe should have been avoidable. And we're going to get into the mayor of this town that is throwing lighter fluid on a fire. He has been for many years, and his own city had a huge crime problem. It spiked all the way during the pandemic, and then it started to slowly tick down, which I believe Minneapolis has the same thing NYPD does in crime classification or reclassifications. And then in 2024, it started to spike up again. So again, this is what you're dealing with when you talk about the entire city as a whole and what's going on there.
I think one of the problems here, the DHS put out a press release back in November. I'll pull it up momentarily, but there's been a very large increase in attacks on ICE agents from January 21st, 2024 to November 21st, 2024. There were only 19 assaults against ICE agents. Remember, this was under the Biden administration too. You fast forward a year, and we don't have the statistics for December 2025 or January yet because it's so early in the month. But the point is there were 238 reported assaults, which is over an 1,100% increase in the same time window. So the anger and aggression toward ICE agents is resulting in violence, whether it be the shooting that took place in Dallas, the mayhem that's taken place at protests in LA, New York, name your blue city. And it's politicians like Jacob Frey, like Karen Bass in Los Angeles, who are encouraging this type of aggression by saying they're not welcome here. We're not going to let them here. What you should be saying is we're going to be lobbying for changes of policies in Washington that decrease the number of deportations that are going to happen. People who committed low-level misdemeanors are not going to be deported. We need workers to stay here, so we're going to work on getting visas. Instead, that's become too difficult. So you're saying we need to attack ICE agents so your angry, rabid constituents are going to get their way on the streets and then they're going to go vote for you at the polls. This is not an effective strategy to reach a solution. in any way, shape, or form, because it's just going to create more violence. You look at the people in Minnesota this morning. I mean, I don't know what they're doing, if they have jobs, if they go to school, anything like that, but they're out on the streets screaming their asses off, being aggressive toward ICE agents who weren't even at the scene of the original crime. So this is the classic example of scapegoating and killing the messenger, as you can see by all the evidence.
Yeah. Right here, Hunter NY1 says they can only sue on the Bivens, and this won't be the case. And Joel Ramirez says Sean Bell's a perfect example. All cops were found not guilty. And then Special Hagen says, I wasn't sure where the shots were coming from. The guy she bumped with the car seemed all right and seemed as if he had jumped in front of the truck. It's tragic nonetheless. I agree. That's the point here. And then here, Chronicles class, MSM has been relentlessly bringing up George Floyd in relation to this event, trying to trigger people, which I am seeing. Okay. And yeah, Ron Layson, shout out to Ron Layson in the chat. There is a difference between policy and law. Policy may state not to shoot at a moving vehicle unless force other than the vehicle is being used. The law states that the vehicle is a deadly weapon when being used to strike an agent. He was directly in front of the vehicle when she put into drive, and that is what I'm trying to tell you.
Yeah,
you people, everyone out there, you may not like what you saw, you may not like the tactics, but is he justified? Yes, he's going to fall into that justification. They might put him, sideline him for a little bit, which appears that this agent got dragged by a car. If you could pull up the Kristi Nolan press conference, she mentioned this, got dragged by a car recently in another incident. So yes, I understand the incident looks bad because the tactics were bad, but is he justified in his actions? Unfortunately, for many, they don't want to hear it. The answer's going to be yes, and there's a law and a procedure they're going to fall back on. But to hear what she was saying, she can play this. You can hear a little bit what she says. She references this incident and the officer, the agent, and what had happened in the past. And I believe it's from MSNBC or whatever, which is, I don't even know if they're in existence anymore, but it's from NBC.
You know, people need to stop using their vehicles as weapons. This domestic act of terrorism to use your vehicle to try to kill law enforcement officers is going to stop. And I'm asking the Department of Justice to prosecute it as domestic terrorism because it's clear that it's being coordinated. People are being trained and told how to use their vehicles to impede law enforcement operations and then to run over anybody who gets in their way while they go out there and try to disrupt peace and public safety. And Americans deserve better. You know, people need to.
So playing the other side of the aisle here, like if you're a private citizen who wants to protest ICE enforcement, that's well within your rights. You just have to do it civilly. You want to hold a sign, you want to scream all the curse words in the world. Okay, that's totally fine. But once you're in your vehicle using a 10,000-pound car, which can easily run someone over and kill them like this as a weapon, that's when you kind of draw the line. And that's what makes the situation so sticky, is that both sides, in a way, were wrong, right? Like the officer, he pulled his gun out. Maybe he could have shot her tires. Maybe he could have figured something else out so she didn't die. They could have gotten her out of the vehicle. They could have done something differently in that regard because it's tragic that she was killed. But on the flip side, it's like the classic example of F around and find out, right? You should not be putting yourself in these types of situations as a private citizen because it's easy for officers to misinterpret what you're trying to do. And if you're in a situation where you get out of control, you're going to get killed, right? So it's really a no-win situation for you. Also, what is this woman hoping to accomplish? Just like everyone else who's protesting against ICE, they're hoping that ICE leaves their city. But I mean, again, the ICE agents are there under the direction and guidance of the federal government. They're not just going to leave because you told them to. It's not going to work that way.
No. And they're there conducting law enforcement activity, like I said. And here, Joel Ramirez says, when the Democrats return to power, they will likely resolve the lawsuit. This situation is reminiscent of Ashley Babbitt and the events of January 6th. Correct. And also, 92 Charlie says, remember, Chauvin followed department protocol and he was found guilty. I don't think this agent is in the clear yet. Well, here's the thing. This case would be federal, not state. I don't know how you're going to bring state charge. He was taking federal law enforcement action, and this woman decides to, if you notice on the scene, someone was arrested for doing, like, jumping in. I saw them in handcuffs and they were saying, "Don't film me," and all that. So again, you're impeding a federal law enforcement action. Okay, so you will be tried, I believe, federally for anything. It's not city or state, because he was taking law enforcement action for the federal government and not the city. Ron Layson said if the agent reasonably believed he was in danger, he is justified to use deadly physical force. And I think they're using a law about domestic terrorism to further that point. So
I agree with Ron, to set the record straight. I think that he was justified in using deadly force. I just question if there could have been an alternative tactic used here that didn't result in the loss of human life. I just want to make the distinction between those two things. And also, Sal, I mean, I don't really understand. I was watching the mainstream media just to see what they were talking about yesterday too, in addition to all the other alternative forms of media, which are a lot better. But I don't really see the parallel between Derek Chauvin and George Floyd and what happened with the ICE agents yesterday, especially because these are two very different time periods. I mean, deportations weren't being conducted in the mass form that they're being conducted in today. ICE wasn't aggressively probing illegal immigrants on the street. There weren't these types of protests over illegal immigration. So there's been 6 years since the two 6 years between the two events. They took place in the same city. There's been the same type of backlash, whether it be the mayor, the police department, who said he doesn't want anything to do with ICE, all that other stuff. But tactically speaking and circumstantially, I really don't think that the cases share anything in common. In fact, they couldn't be more different. You have one person who's trying to actively block a protest. You have another person who's being apprehended by cops outside of a store. What similarities are there between the two? I don't see any.
Well, Hunter and White one said nobody reported to me how many times have ICE stand down and be attacked by domestic terrorists, which there's a lot of that. Okay. There is this video of it everywhere, of incidents where the ICE agents, basically 6 years ago, they made the police the enemy. Right now, they're making ICE the enemy. That's all they're doing. They're redirecting your hatred to different aspects of law enforcement. One was the cops. Now it's the ICE agents, and here, I'm going to go back to this. Stephen S. says, and shout out to Stephen S. for being in the chat. Remember Ashley Babbitt? She was murdered, and that piece of garbage who killed her got away with it, right? And this is the closest kind of situation I could tell you where it's federal branches. So the Capitol Police doesn't fall on the federal technically because they're their own entity, but he was cleared in the District of D.C. So to bring a case towards him, which he was justified in that shooting. That's what they did. They justified it. So now you're suing Capitol Police and the Capitol and all, and you're going up the chain. You find it incredibly difficult. This one, with this, you're falling under a federal situation. And again, maybe he could be disciplined internally. I don't know. Again, I don't know their own protocols, because those tactics were horrible. They were horrendous. But again, he's going to be they're going to justify his shooting. Be prepared. But now we have the incident, we have the video, we have all of that. Do you have anything recently, Jack, of what's gone on? Because I believe they're in the city as we speak. And now you're going to get into this whole second half where now they're taking over the city. Now they're starting their little nonsense again. All of a sudden, all the rioters that we know and protesters are now being bussed around to go to Minneapolis. And if I'm correct, I heard they're going to start doing this in all the major cities, right?
Yeah. So this is what's taking place right now in Minneapolis. And yeah, I mean, there's storms of ICE agents outside federal buildings because people are acting unruly. And remember 2 weeks ago when something like this took place in New Orleans and all that happened was local police came in and started arresting people, and then we forgot about it and we moved on to the next thing? This has become, sadly, the cycle of life in society. There's a tragic incident. There's mass protests. Everyone goes crazy. Nothing good comes about it. We all forget about it. And then there's another crazy incident. Wash, rinse, repeat. When is something actually going to change? What needs to happen is people need to be educated on the powers and restrictions of ICE agents, what they're supposed to be doing. And then they need to become more educated on what their politicians are doing legislatively speaking, because most of them are not doing anything really to combat ICE. And you see Mr. Mamdani too. I mean, of course he had to chime in on the matter, right? Because he's a domestic advocate now more than a mayor of New York City. He said, this morning, an ICE agent murdered a woman in Minneapolis, only the latest horror in a year full of cruelty. As ICE attacks our neighbors across America, it is an attack on us all. New York stands with immigrants today and every day that follows. Okay, so hypothetical question here for Mr. Mamdani, because he likes to do a lot of talking.
He does.
There's illegal immigrant gangs in your city who are part of Tren de Aragua, right? They've been caught. They were in Times Square staging an attack last week, and they beat someone up. There's wanted posters for some of these individuals all over New York City right now. If ICE catches them, finds out they're in your city illegally, and they're assaulting your residents, causing violent crimes, robbing businesses, creating mayhem, are you just going to justify allowing them to stay in your city? Or are you going to try and deport them? That's the million-dollar question that nobody is asking to the politicians in charge, and that they're inherently unwilling to answer. I mean, you even saw with Frey years ago with the no-knock arrest warrant situation where he said, we're not doing that anymore. The minute it happens, he runs away from the cameras, right? So it's like they all want to be about talking the talk, but none of them want to walk the walk. I believe that's going to be the biggest remedy here, and the most important solution to the problem is politicians drawing more definitive guidelines about what types of criminals you're allowed to deport and who you're not going to be deporting, because that's the stem and the root of the conflict. It's like we're here fighting a war and we forgot why we're fighting. It's ridiculous. And I want just to also, I understand that Laura Ingraham had said that agent, that very same agent, was dragged 50 feet by a vehicle in that prior incident that I've been speaking about. So again, the tactics, again, I understand they were piss poor, but you still, I mean, you're dragging agents. This is the precedent they set there in Minneapolis, thanks to the mayor. You know, but to speak of Mr. Mamdani, Mayor Mamdani, I had actually posted that myself on X, and I responded to Mr. Mamdani, and I said, that woman tried to run over an ICE agent conducting a lawful stop. This is why public safety is not your strong suit, since you struggle to comprehend procedures of law. The agent was justified. We're about New York City, Mr. Mayor. Plenty of issues you made promises on to deliver yet. I don't know why he chimed in, Jack. I don't know. I get this guy wants to be on the forefront of everything. You know, Minneapolis is not New York City, but I would bet what you're seeing in Minneapolis, like if they're going to start doing anything crazy and protesting and rioting or whatever they're going to try to do, they're going to come to New York City and do it. They're going to go to Austin, Texas and do it. They're going to go to Los Angeles and do it. They already have all the people on buses. It's a larger issue. People need to see this for what it is. Look past this one thing. I understand it's a horrible, you know, I'm sorry someone's life was taken tragically here, but it's the larger issue is they're going to try to make this into a rallying cry for their little agenda, which is anarchy and chaos. And then you're going to have more anarchy and chaos in it. That's what I foresee coming out of this. And the battle to them is now no longer the police. It's ICE. ICE is the bad guy because Orange Man bad, as you know. They hate Trump. And this is how they're going to use. This is the bullseye for the agenda, ICE. And Mamdani, by the way, still hasn't done anything to stand in front of the ICE fans metaphorically or in actuality when it comes to deportations, right? Like the regularly scheduled deportations that ICE is conducting in New York City and was conducting under Eric Adams have continued under Zohran Mamdani. So literally there is nothing different legislatively or in terms of how business is being conducted by ICE agents in New York City since he's taken over. So it's him putting his chest out and saying, I don't like the incident that happened in Minnesota, but to me, it's kind of much ado about nothing because he still hasn't changed the way that deportations are being conducted in New York City. And he still hasn't spoken out about changing the number of crimes or offenses that they're deporting people for. He did mention a conversation with President Trump that he had a couple weeks ago about how there were people in his district who were unfairly deported. In his eyes, a child separated from his mother. He was going to try and end that. But since then, it's been radio silent about that issue and on to the next thing. So until I see pro-action from Jacob Frey, from Zohran Mamdani, from Karen Bass, they're going to look like WWE characters because they're just moving their mouths and talking, but not doing anything.
Yeah. Hunter NY1 said, you can expect the liberal media scream they shot an LGBTQ unarmed woman.
Yeah, it's the dilemma of narrative framing, right? Like if this
perception management.
Yeah, like it's perception management, okay? So let's play a hypothetical situation for a second here. If this woman is conservative, if she has a husband, if she has a family, are we talking about it differently than if she's a lesbian with a child who's getting married to another woman? I'm bound to believe that that is the case because that's the world we live in. It's like we constantly adjust the standards based on the characters involved.
The whole thing is you know, the whole perception management thing. We've seen that over and over again, you know, and I like to highlight this stuff for a reason because perception management goes on nonstop, especially in law enforcement, especially in running municipalities or government. The narrative here, and this is what I hate, they're already formulating that narrative, and instead of looking at it as this, a woman lost their life. It's very tragic. Obviously, they shouldn't have been so involved in law enforcement activities, federal law enforcement activities to boot. But you're painting it as, again, I hear the whole LGBTQ, which I heard last night as well in the mainstream media. Oh, she had a child. That makes it even worse. To me, look at it for what it is. It's an incident. It's terrible. It shouldn't have happened. And really the thing you should learn here is that, number one, don't get involved and don't think you're going to put your car in the middle of a procession of federal agents and think that everything's going to be fine. You know, same thing in Secret Service, where they have the right to shoot if you get involved in anything, in any presidential motorcades or anything like that. So you have to understand there's a little difference between city and federal, dealing with a city cop, dealing with the state cop, and dealing with a federal agent, and how you go about that. But again, I like to keep highlighting that now the worst mayor in America, now that Eric Adams is no longer a mayor, Jacob Frey, and it's Jacob Frey because of his rhetoric, how he's running that city, and the crime numbers there, which they say they're low, but I'd like to point out how we have shown you over and over again how they can manipulate crime stats, yet you go there and look what you have. And now you have more rioting. You know, they were burning down buildings not even 6 years ago. Is this going to occur again now? And yeah, I know Derek, you know, they did say Derek Chauvin, and, you know, he went to prison and he followed the department guidelines, and yet he's in prison. So it's like, what is going on in this little city? And that, you know, and then you have the Somali daycare centers on top of it, which is a separate issue from all this. But what is going on here that it seems that Jacob Frey can't get his own city in order, but he's out there, you know, casting stones from his glass house that it's all ISIS' fault. Tell me how that could be.
And there's one character involved here that we haven't really mentioned a lot, and that's Brian O'Hara, who is the police chief in Minneapolis. He's the chief of department. And a couple weeks ago, he said that he doesn't want ICE agents in his city. So he was already kind of starting to encourage the violence toward ICE agents. But as a lot of you probably know about Brian O'Hara, he also worked in public safety in Newark, New Jersey, right before he went to Minneapolis. So he's kind of from the tri-state area political / law enforcement trade. Like, he's very much so a lefty in terms of his policies, in terms of how he speaks, interacts with the public, all that stuff. So this is something that you felt kind of brimming beneath the surface a couple weeks ago, and that should be a message to other police chiefs around the country too. Don't talk about, oh, they're not welcome here, we don't want them here. You guys want safe cities, right? So having a safe city just by default involves conducting deportations and getting rid of violent criminals. Just like having a safe city also has a police department, right? If you want a safe city, you can't say, oh, we're going to have no police here. That's like telling the robbers to come out and go crazy, right? People are going to rob banks. There's going to be crimes on every street corner. Like, you need police departments. You need ICE agents to keep your city safe. Do they maybe stretch their responsibilities and go overboard in some cases? Do you not agree with some of the policies within the department? Sure, that's totally fine, right? That's part of being a private citizen, part of having your First Amendment right. But you can't sit here and say, we want to abolish them altogether, because then that's going to create real mayhem like you've never seen before.
Yeah. And again, this city now will be under a microscope. And you just don't want to see now, as the weekend's drawing closer and closer. It's almost Friday. And then we don't want to see the riots go on because of this, because they love to take an issue like this and spin it into, now we're going to come to your city and burn it down. You know, and this is where, if need be, if you have to send the National Guard or wherever it takes over there, if this gets out of control, they should all be on standby. And I know how that looks, but we've already been through this 6 years ago. You don't want to repeat. You just can't have a repeat of this stuff. Although the incident, like I said, I don't like their tactics. I don't like the end result either. But in the end, he's justified. He's going to be found justified. And there's nothing you could say or do about it. You could try to sue and all this stuff. Obviously, there's no civilian complaint review board for federal agents. So this is what I'm trying to tell you. You got to know the animal that you're dealing with. You know, with the NYPD and those, there's all kinds of things you could do, because they're kind of like paper tigers in a sense that you could sue them. You're probably going to get $10,000 if you just fall down on the street and say, oh, he touched me. That kind of stuff works in short term with police agencies. It won't work with a federal one. So you guys out there, some of you, and you're riling up too. Like, if you just want to be, you know, Citizen John or Citizen Jane, and you're taking video from a distance and you just want to do what you say you're doing, we're just going to observe. But you went from observing to now you want to be part of the act. You know, I hate to say this, but in the movie Lord of War, Nicolas Cage is a gun dealer. And his brother, he was with him and then he wasn't around with him because, you know, Nicolas Cage was outrageous what he was doing. He was selling guns to dictators, and the movie's a little political. It gets in, but bottom line is, at the end, his brother knows that the shipment of weapons they're about to sell one of the dictators, they're going to just turn around and slaughter a village. It's just like a third world country somewhere out in Western or Eastern, wherever it is, whatever country they were in, but it's a third world country. So he said he violated the one rule, because he goes where the weapons are that they're selling. They all get upset. His brother takes a grenade and he gets shot by all those dictators, bodyguards and stuff. And then Nicolas Cage goes over to him, and before he could take the pin and throw it, Nicolas Cage puts the pin back, and he says he violates the one rule: don't pick up the guns and start running with those guys. You either selling the gun or you're not part of it, or you can't be both. So that's the lesson. I looking at that was saying, if you're going to observe someone, that's one thing. Then saying, I'm going to jump in, and now, you know, you're upset about the reaction to this. And I know it's hard rhetoric for people, but it's the truth. You're going to now jump into this when you're an observer and now think you're going to be part of the act. And that's what happened here, unfortunately. Don't interfere in their operations. It's very simple. You don't want something like this happening, but it can happen. It's a possibility. Just like when Nicolas Cage's brother there jumps into the firearm sales, and then they shoot him because he's trying to take a grenade out. So the common thing is, be smart. Don't think you're part of the act when you're not, because you don't know what can happen. It's a very sad ending. And again, it was fueled by the rhetoric of the mayor there, who was probably the worst mayor in all of the country. Now, thanks to Eric Adams not being there.
Yeah, no, well said. And that's a really good comparison to the movie Lord of War. You just hope, and this is kind of the one overlap between the George Floyd case and this instance, You just hope that the public perception and the amount of backlash that is taking place right now doesn't taint the opinion of the judge. And if there's a jury involved, the opinion of the jury as well. Because I do believe that during the Derek Chauvin case, that's exactly what happened. You had cities being burned down. There was a lot of pressure to convict him. People didn't even read the medical reports that stated that George Floyd was on fentanyl at the time of his death. So this is really where the facts kind of get put on the back burner and the people involved in the case don't get a fair trial. You hope that's not going to happen this time around, but given the crazy circumstances surrounding this case, you're scared that it does. I mean, just to make an analogy too with the George Floyd Derek Chauvin case, there was a certain police chief, former chief of department in New York City, who we're not going to name. When he was a lieutenant, he shot and killed someone, lied about it in the court of law, and cost the city $2.5 million in a settlement. This happened in about 2008, 2010. If this incident happens a decade later, around when the George Floyd fiasco took place, he's probably seeing a very different fate in the courtroom than what he saw years earlier. And he's probably not getting promoted to chief of department either. I think a lot more people are kind of looking at his resume carefully as well. So all of these anecdotal examples that I provide go to show that there can be a lot of things that can taint the opinion of the public in a court case like this one.
Yeah. And again, like I said, you don't like the result. Nobody does. Nobody wants anybody tragically dying or any, but again, no. You have to know your limitations, you know, and it's a fact that you just don't jump into things. Don't interfere with things because you're not part of that act, you know? So it's a tragedy. I expect there's going to be a lot. Just be aware. No protest. You could protest things. You want to, do whatever. But let's not see what we saw just 6 years ago, closing down streets, burning down buildings. I would hope that cooler heads would prevail. But if not, then if some of these, National Guardsmen or something have to show up to quell things, so be it. I just hope it doesn't spin into that. But again, Jacob Frey, you are a failure as a politician. You should actually resign. You were also kneeling at the casket of George Floyd, crying with your mask on. You don't even know this person. Imagine just showing up to a funeral you don't know.
No, I mean, it's totally ridiculous. And going forward, these protests need to be more contained because as history has shown us, they don't lead to anything good. There's no policy changes. There's no legislative changes. Really, it's primitive of the people showing up to them in a sense because they're showing up to unload and unleash the beast of all their anger, yet nothing really comes about because of it. So I'm proposing going forward that protests need to be more contained, especially in blue cities. It can't just be mayhem all over the place with people burning cars and going crazy. There need to be protest zones. Gates need to be put up in certain cases. You need to block off certain public buildings so they're not being destroyed by the public and unruly individuals. Let's have more regulations on protests. The First Amendment right does exist for a reason, but I'm tired of the deaths. I'm tired of the arrests that's taking place. I know the arrests have to happen. Some people want to be arrested. Okay, that's fine. But I'm done with all of these buses coming in and telling people, oh, you need to leave. And then when they don't leave, they get arrested. No, block off those public spaces so they can't go there. Tell them to go across the street with their stupid little signs. Let them protest there and call it a day. These things need to be a lot better controlled than they are right now because blue cities are failing miserably, and the politicians and law enforcement agencies to a lesser degree who don't know how to handle these things are to blame.
Yeah, I agree. And, we'll see. I hope this doesn't escalate. That's all I'm saying. Yeah. Be prepared just in case, because we saw this not even, it was a couple of years ago, and I just don't want to see that. But I'm now going to move into something, and it's something, Eric Sanders is in the chat, but I don't know if you could put this post up because we're going to pivot into this. So this is from Eric Sanders. So my sources are saying that Inspector DeWatt Fitrue retired related to the shenanigans of Deputy Chief Richard S. Taylor. I guess he wouldn't tell the false narratives. The Christmas tree red herring was designed to throw everyone off. And speaking of that, what's the status of the cover-up savior? When there's a real crime, we're here, crickets. Now, we have covered both ends of this. Number one, inspector, now he's retired, Fikru there, said that he wasn't going to go through, or he left because of the Richie S. Taylor, that's Deputy Chief Richie S. Taylor of Community Affairs. You know, there's a scandal there where he is not signing in, and the guy does whatever the hell he wants. Shows up to work when he wants, leaves work when he wants, and no one else can justify why he says he's working from home. I don't even know how that could be. So
as a deputy chief working from home, how do you get that arrangement?
This chief is working from home apparently, but because he's not even in the country. So
is this a hybrid model, fully remote? Like, what's the deal here?
Yeah. Fikru investigated him. There was a GO-15, which is the investigation. If you don't know, interrogations for NYPD police officers, you get interrogated in an investigation. They call it GO-15. So then this individual, Fikru, was then interviewing Richie S. Taylor, where he said he was working from home. I don't know where this statement came from. And then we learn of this Christmas tree in Group 1 that they had with a target list of people, which he's saying he's retiring because he's taking the fall for that, when really the cover-up is still going on with Richie Taylor. So the question now, first of all, the soccer mom, who Eric likes to call the savior, she's a soccer mom. She has no clue about anything in the NYPD. She was up at a press conference the other day with Mamdani and Governor Hochul, three stooges when it comes to public safety. And she's saying that, they're saying that that's why he took the fall for this Christmas tree that happened. It's like a target list of people from the office. Yet what really happened is it started with Richie Taylor, and then it continues under the tree. So there's a lot going on there, and you hear nothing coming from the police department. There's all this stuff that was supposed to be like written in the media, but the soccer mom and her minions are doing everything to keep out from you reading anything in any major publication, because that's how powerful the soccer mom is, apparently. But there's going to be more, and we're going to uncover it with Group 1, Fikru, what happened with this Christmas tree, because if you were being investigated, you now should have a lawsuit, because your entire investigation is tainted. Okay, it's tainted that you have guys running around, and God knows what they're doing, taking bets, but they have your face and your information on a Christmas tree in Group 1. And this guy's also trying to slow down the Richie Taylor investigation. Sounds crazy, but this is what's going on.
So two things here. Number one, we need photos of this Christmas tree, because we've gotten a lot of information, anonymous tips, the hotline's been blowing up, all that good stuff. But we would like to get some images of this Christmas tree as well. As it pertains to Richie Taylor, the million-dollar question that doesn't have an answer right now, who is his hook? Because whether it be Bill de Blasio, Eric Adams, or now Zohran Mamdani, he's always at the top. He's always at the top of the food chain, and he's always not just at the top of the food chain, but being pictured with these people at huge gather. I mean, you saw him a couple weeks ago. We played the video of him walking into a synagogue, and like he and Mamdani embrace each other like they've been best friends for a decade, right? So, it's seriously odd how this guy has always kind of gotten to the top of the food chain somehow, regardless of the administration it plays. And I just have to wonder who he's connected to within the Jewish community or city government, because by all indications, he was actually a very bad police officer and was horrible when he was in supervisory type roles in these communities. As a matter of fact, people from the community have recorded videos on TikTok or Instagram for fun, kind of recklessly so, saying, "What have you done for us, man? What have you done for us?" While he's on the phone. Like, they've gone and antagonized him a little bit to an extreme degree. But the point is, a lot of the real OGs within the Jewish community and politics don't like him, and they're not for his showmanship first, policing second type of style. And it's weird that he has so much pull and power when he's accomplished so little in his policing career. And now he's also getting to be treated like he's part of Tier 1, where he's getting flyovers and helicopters. He has his own company car that he's taking out to go get food and all of that stuff. So the cronyism and the special treatment for someone who's caused mass harm and destruction is very concerning. And even more concerning, Mamdani's not doing anything, and he's like embracing the guy like he's about to get another promotion too, on top of it. Doubling down on his affiliation with one of the bad apples from the Adams administration, which has become an all too familiar theme.
Yeah. So now that we discussed this, I wanted to bring this up because yesterday, Mayor Mamdani holds his first press conference. And if you guys thought that, Sal, you're not, listen, when you mess up, you're gonna get it here, right? And not necessarily Mayor Mamdani himself here, but his appointed. So Christine Clark is going to be the head of the committee for
Human rights.
The head. She's now going to be the head of the committee for human rights. She's an appointed figure in the Mayor Mamdani administration, and he introduced her. And then here's the first press conference. Here's the first question. So listen to the word salad that we hear here.
There was recently an audit from the state controller that found that tenants who file discrimination complaints with the commission regularly face years-long delays. What will this administration do differently to prevent those delays and to prevent the discrimination from happening in the first place?
Yeah, so there are unquestionably enormous delays right now at the Commission on Human Rights. There's a lot of wonderful people who work there who want to do better work faster, and I'm really looking forward to working with them to figure out ways to move things faster, move resources so they can go more efficiently. And I think as chair, it's my responsibility to get decisions out faster, which I intend to do immediately.
Yeah, go ahead.
And just to the prior question that was asked, what that audit found, we're speaking of far more than just 2 years to come to a resolution on a number of these cases. When it takes that long to come to a conclusion, then New Yorkers lose faith in their ability to actually report these kinds of discrimination to an institution like CCHR. So the imperative that we have as a city government is to follow through quicker, such that people actually learn that there is a reason they should trust city government, they should trust CCHR, and they should trust our new chair and our new commissioner.
Yeah. So what you're hearing there, Jack, is first of all, it's a big word salad. Christine Clark. I didn't hear specifics, Christine. There's no specifics. He then says, "Oh well, you know, we're gonna CCHR." He's not giving specifics, and it's a big word salad. And the first question they asked, they basically fell flat, face first, right into the mud. So get ready, folks. It's going to be quite a ride because we have a novice politician putting in real winners that you better know how to handle press conferences, because that was answering. That's the non-answer answer, folks. Non-answer answer.
With Mamdani at this point, when watching his press conferences, I need to make like a bingo sheet to start checking off boxes. It's like being an international advocate. Okay, word salad answer. Blaming Eric Adams. He clearly accomplished 2 of the 3 goals with that answer, because he said this is going to be a commission that's great. We're going to have fair housing. People are going to feel comfortable going to us. But then he totally backtracked and said, yeah, we need to totally rebuild the trust in this agency because people were so distrustful under Eric Adams. Meanwhile, Eric Adams had very little to do with this agency specifically.
He doesn't even know what the hell.
Yeah,
Eric Adams was thinking about which nightclub he was going to go party with, and with his boys Jimmy and Timmy Pierce and all these guys. He doesn't know anything about CCH. What the hell does he know?
Yeah, so his factual information there is just like completely inaccurate. I don't know if his low information supporters were able to identify or pick up on that. So he was totally wrong there. And then he didn't say anything about any of the housing proposals that he was supposed to take a stance on during the debate, failed to take a stance on, had Governor Kathy Hochul handing out pamphlets the day of the election about these proposals. He still didn't take a stance on it until after the election. So it's totally disastrous. And he didn't tell New Yorkers one way he was going to make housing more affordable or even less discriminatory, because that was the whole purpose of this press conference. And he didn't say one way he was going to do this, except for the fact that, oh, we have a different administration in place. I'm confident in the people I've appointed who've proven to be disastrous so far. His director of appointments resigned in less than 24 hours, remember? So, I mean, he hasn't been competent. He hasn't proved himself. And he's saying, oh, yeah, just trust me because I'm a new face in City Hall. That's only going to work for so long, buddy. Come on. You got to
Yeah.
do better. We don't like schooling you, Mamdani, but when we watch your press conferences, it's like you think we're stupid and this is some sort of amateur hour.
I hate, look, the people are going to, I was never going to go easy on anything. And this guy already, that some of the stuff I'm seeing, that he had a press conference too, where if you listen again, there's never real specifics. If you look at him and you hear him, he's a likable guy because he's got a lot of charm to him or charisma. I'm talking from like a political landscape, guys. But what he just said and what Christine Clark said is a big non-answer and answer. And we don't, and they don't even know the specifics. And you can't, okay, the answer, it's going to be easy to say it's Eric Adams' fault. The guy was horrible. But some of the things Eric Adams doesn't control. So you need to really look at what you're going to say and how you're going to answer, because Eric Adams is not every single human problem that exists in New York City.
No.
A lot of it, but there's a lot of stuff he doesn't know. You, as the mayor, better know, because these people are going to ask you these kind of questions and they got you. That's the gotcha moment. But I think that's not the only one from yesterday, right?
No, there's another one from yesterday. But before we go any further, I also want to point out another guilty culprit here who's getting all the flowers and roses put next to her name. El Bizgard, her name's tough to pronounce. El Bizgard Church, who is Zohran Mamdani's chief of staff, did a fantastic job on the campaign trail, crafting his message, creating a coalition with the Democratic Socialists of America, all this good stuff, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
But she is absolutely terrible, legislatively speaking, and she's being retained as the chief of staff when people in Albany are looking at themselves saying, wait a minute, she has no connections to political action committees. She stayed silent during her entire time in the state capitol. Has not really done a lot in terms of forming partnerships with other politicians in Albany or the city council or anything like that. So he's being advised in large part by someone who's very poor on the most important core principal skills of being a politician. So, I mean, that's another one of the issues with Mamdani here. Everyone talks about how good she is. She's doing a great job, but she's to blame for a lot of these problems too, because she's the one advising him and she's giving him very bad advice. But here's Sia Weaver, who's one of his new members of his administration as well, answering some questions on New York One about previously put out their tweets.
The former mayor, Eric Adams, said that you were, quote, out of your effing mind. That was in response to a resurfaced tweet from way back when, something you'd said on Twitter about home ownership being a tool of white supremacy. I wanted to give you a chance to respond. You're not out of your mind, right?
I don't think I'm out of my mind.
Okay.
I think that some of those things are certainly not how I would say things today and are regretful. But, I do think my sort of decades of experience fighting for more affordable housing sort of stands on its own. I'm proud to be in this role fighting for stronger tenants' rights. And I think that for many years, people have been locked out of the property market. That has produced a lot of systemic and racial inequalities in our system. And I want to make sure that everybody has a safe and affordable place to live, whether they rent or own. And that is something that I'm laser focused on in this new role.
The former...
Interesting. I don't know. Listen, this guy's staff is going to be, you're going to really like what you see. I say this because I'm not killing the guy. Let him put his people in and then let's see what they do. Right. You already saw the first person, Christine Clark, has no idea. So that's what I'm saying. And this is where you need to be critical of people. A silver bell for you says, she is out of her mind. She sounds like it, but again, we don't know. Let's see how she's going to actually govern, meaning Mamdani, how he governs. This could be a potential disaster, but at the same time, it's going to be a train wreck that we could all tell you about and have a good laugh about. But unfortunately, New York City taxpayers might be on the hook for that. But I don't even know what she's talking about. So,
yeah, I mean, this is where people get kind of emotionally carried away on some level. Yeah, maybe she said something about white supremacy. She does on the surface appear to be one of those crazy liberal women who comes from wealth yet complains about billionaires and millionaires running the world, right? She does fit the bill and the description of that character perfectly. But at the end of the day, Sal, if someone tweeted 10 years ago, I love Satan, everyone needs to go worship Satan. but they have the best legislative track record in Albany. They created more affordable housing. They proposed bills that got passed by the assembly, signed off by the governor. Does it really matter what their religious affiliation is? Like, why are people so hung up on and concerned about what people said or tweeted such a long time ago? Politics is always going to be a dog-eat-dog world where people
evolving
have these ad hominem personal attacks. But at the end of the day, like, it really doesn't matter if actions speak louder than words. The problem is with all of these people that Mamdani is appointing, their actions don't match up with their words as it pertains to what they're supposed to be doing in terms of their job responsibilities. So they have clear-cut character concerns on their resume, and then they don't have the work experience to back up what they're supposed to be doing. She talked about her track record and how good it is, but she did not, well, again, this is becoming an all too familiar theme. She did not say one thing she is going to do to make housing more affordable in New York City, whether it be building housing, freezing rent, keeping costs stagnant so that people can afford the cost of living as inflation factors in and raises all their other bills. So, yeah, I mean, they're not addressing the stem and the root of the problem head on. And that continues to be the biggest issue, not whether someone said that white supremacy was a problem or that they hated this religion or that religion. Like, those things really are irrelevant in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. Look, you're going to have, there's going to be a lot of these moments coming forward. You know, listen, I watched those debates. Curtis Sliwa was the only one giving you policies. Cuomo did a few, but you know he's a liar and a schemer. But Curtis Sliwa had policies. He gave you exactly what he's going to do, you know, but you guys chose differently. So now whatever happens now, you got to be subjected to. New York City voters have themselves to blame. This is the kind of stuff you're going to be seeing a lot of, you know, coming at you from Mamdani's administration. I got three things I wanted to get to.
One more. Well, before we move on, one more really cool photo that I promised. Sal, we spoke about this on the phone off the air, but I just wanted to pull this up for all of our viewers because I think you guys would really like this. If you think that Curtis Sliwa is not a man of the people,
yes,
in line at Zohran Mamdani's inauguration, he took a ton of crap, and I mean a ton of crap for this. Oh, you know, you were criticizing Mamdani on the campaign trail. You talked about rejecting socialism. Now you're at his inauguration, supporting the guy. I mean, yeah, at the end of the day, he won the election. He's going to be the mayor of New York City. There's nothing that Sliwa can do about this. And I don't understand all the backlash on social media. People talking about how Sliwa wanted Mamdani to win, how he doesn't care about New York City anymore, how he's left his morals at the front door. This is another situation where people are getting carried away.
Look, I'm going to tell you, Curtis Sliwa has been at every single mayoral inauguration, I believe, in the last 30 or 40 years, maybe more, okay? There's nothing to this other than he's at an inauguration. He was there for Eric Adams. He doesn't like Eric Adams. People read way too much into it. You have all these people, these Israel first influencers that are running wild with conspiracies. And you have any facts? Because there are none other than Curtis Lee was at an inauguration, which he's been at for the last 40 to 50 years going. He's a guardian angels have always been there. So it's not like he's shaking hands with the guy. I think he was killing him on the radio for something the other day. Curtis Lee was now on WOR, by the way, 7:10 a.m. in New York City, and you can catch that on Heart. You could check that out on the internet too. WOR, you could listen to that. But his stuff is insane. And Curtis Lee was a good man. And if you keep throwing shit at him, look at the people that are doing it. WABC Radio, John Katzimatidis. He's like a cancer of New York City.
Yeah, seriously. And nationally now, too. I mean, he called President Trump on the phone to ask him about Maduro's being captured. I mean, isn't that a little bit ridiculous, too? Yeah. He hadn't even issued a statement about it yet. John Katzimatidis gets the first word with President Trump.
They're discussing the city of yes and how that casino that Eric Adams helped them get is going to be so grand and great.
The best part about this photo, though, before we move on, is how easily identifiable Curtis Sliwa is as the head of the Guardian Angels, yet how crazy, like, he also blends in so easily. Like, nobody here is turning around saying, oh, you're Curtis Sliwa, let me take a photo with you. He's just kind of there as a man of the people, and you got to really give him credit too, because while Andrew Cuomo is on WABC mouthing off, retreating back to the Hamptons or Westchester, wherever he happens to live during the year when he's not on the campaign trail, Curtis Lewa is out on the streets with the people. He was in Malta when there was that incident with all the cars going crazy and the fires and the dumpsters and all that stuff. And he's campaigning and advocating still for politicians that he likes. So he really hasn't changed anything about his mannerisms and behavior, despite losing a very disappointing election.
Yeah, I like Michael M's comment here. I will not comment on the shooting in question as all the facts and videos are not in, but I do believe that better training and deployment of personnel with adequate supervisory controls needed for ICE as a product of Chief Adamona's disorder control training, good tactics work. I did say that. You could go back on the show. We were talking about the tactics. Yeah. And that, I mean, they definitely need to be trained. I'm not gonna lie. And Special Hagen, I've never understood why newly elected never address corruption first. There should be a commission for the NYPD in efforts to address the receivership at the Department of Corrections. You are correct. I don't know why. I thought Mamdani was going to do something. He probably just fell asleep at the wheel with his newly anointed. What was that woman, Christine Clark, or with her? It gives you the non-answer. But there were three things I was going to get to. So the first one was actually I missed the other day. Tim Pearson. If you could put that up, I posted something about Tim Pearson that the city is now up to $620,000 worth of legal fees with this guy. I don't know if you know this. Tim Pearson right here has already cost the New York City taxpayers a ridiculous amount of money for his legal defense violating GML 50K2. The mayor should order Corporation Counsel to cease immediately defending him and ask to be refunded for their legal services forthwith. This guy is in a lot of lawsuits, sexual harassment, he violated GML 50K2. So why are they still defending him? Mayor Mamdani, cut this off. Tell your Corporation Counsel he has to refund all his money. Eric Adams has his own. All these guys, GML 50K2, cut it off. Cut it off. I don't know what it's going to take. Taxpayers shouldn't be paying for this stuff.
Is Mamdani competent enough to even conceptualize everything you just said, or is he still worrying about the protests in Minnesota and Maduro being captured in Venezuela? Because honestly, I don't know. I mean, the guy just bounces from thing to thing to thing, and he's clearly not spending enough time on really cleaning up the root of the corruption because, as I understand it, Michael LaPetri is still the chief of department. Jessica Tisch is still the police commissioner. Many of Eric Adams's members of his administration still remain in office to this day. He brought back a lot of people from the de Blasio administration. So how are you cleaning up any of the issues that have plagued New York City for years? Oh, and by the way, he justified all of this yesterday by saying, when I hired members of my administration, I didn't want to hold it against them if they were tied to a previous regime. I wanted to judge them on the work that they were doing as opposed to who they were working for. That's fair, but the problem with that logic is that the people that they were working for carried out a very specific agenda, and they were following that blueprint. And now you hired them to be in roles where you're not going to be supervising them because you don't even understand why you just hired them to begin with. And they're just going to be running rampant with the same agenda. And everyone's giving Mamdani so much credit for the universal child care proposal that was rolled out this morning. Governor Kathy Hochul, his political grandmother / stepmother / supervisor, whatever you want to call her, she was rolling that out weeks ago, way before he got into office. So it's like, if any of you have seen that video of the person who's like ushering in the subway train comes in the station, they slowly like put their hands on the door to act like they're doing something. That's what it feels like the Mamdani administration is. Like taking credit for all of the decisions that were made before he got into office and then distancing himself from all the ineptitude that happened to take place on the surface. Really, nothing has changed.
You can't run away from that. Shout out Frankie Palaguacci, $9.99 to the Sal Greco Show. The house is still dirty. I agree. And Frankie, you know, we haven't forgot about you, so we'll put up any updates, anything going on with your own case. But there's going to be a lot of cafecitos going around. $9.99. Thank you very much for that. Yeah. What is this?
This is what Mamdani looks like. as the mayor of New York City. You see this guy who's wearing the green vest in the subway system. It's like the doors are closing. He puts his hand on the door. He pushes the train even though it's already rolling. This is the Mamdani administration in a nutshell. Oh, and he's slowing it down there too, right? Like he's perfected the art of window dressing and appealing to people who do no factual research on anything he says.
Yeah. Special Agent chimes in. Adams screwed Pearson and himself based on his pettiness. He could have settled Pearson's lawsuits and minimized the exposure with possible federal investigations and prosecution from the DA's office. That's correct. But unfortunately, Eric Adams, to do anything, Eric Adams cannot do anything. He's a vindictive guy. He's the worst out of the whole. Crumbs is really Eric Adams. He's the top of the pyramid. He's vindictive. That's why he didn't do that. He wants to be vindictive towards people. It makes sense to get rid of those cases, but now you got to. It's a disaster. That's all I'm going to say. $620K in legal fees plus the settlement. He's already chiming close to $2 million alone right now. That's what taxpayers have paid for Tim Pearson when really should be his own money, his own lawyers. Defend yourself.
He's not cleaning up anything. He's just simply sliding it under the rug. If you really want to clean up the corruption, address the lawsuits, settle them, hire lawyers to get legal advice and give legal advice to your administration. Don't act like they don't exist. This is a 1,000-pound elephant that's stomping around the room. It's not going to get out the door and run away. Come on.
The second thing I'm going to get to is the other day, remember you saw they had a press conference. I saw something Governor Hochul put up, something about crime being down, all this nonsense. So I had responded to that because it's ridiculous what's going on. And I said, what she means is she's strong-arming Mamdani to keep the soccer mom in place who couldn't run a lemonade stand, let alone the largest police department in the world. Felonies are down, but misdemeanors are up. Nothing to see here. Okay? And she put, look, historic lows, homicides down 20%. Oh, and if you watched the last show, they were saying how not petty larceny, they said how crimes in stores like burglaries and commercial crimes in stores are down. And then I just showed you how they downgraded a burglary into a petty larceny that day. The morning they did the press conference on Tuesday. On Sunday, that was an incident in 7th Precinct at my friend's place, which they still haven't changed. So that's going to be that's something else. And there's the violent crime. Look at that chart. This is from 2000 to 2025. Okay, nothing. It actually has gone up, and it's crazy because it's been in a trend that they just can't stop. They can't stop the trend, and you're wondering how they're going to handle that. But the last thing I'm going to mention before we get into the one last thing with the sports, but Joel Ramirez, he has a post, and I think it's very interesting to read this because this came down. I know all the particulars, but I'm not going to release names. So the recent hiring practice of the NYPD have raised serious concerns. While it's understandable that individuals are looking for ways to supplement their income, hiring officers from platforms like OnlyFans is troubling. How can we expect a candidate who may have a controversial online presence to respond professionally at a scene involving a victim? This particular officer, hired in April 2025, represents a growing trend that could undermine the integrity of the police force. I generally wish her well in her career, but these hiring decisions reflect a troubling pattern of insufficient vetting that could impact both the public perception of the NYPD and the overall quality of its officers. This officer can be found on an adult website, pickarazor.com. And just to let you know, I saw it. I know where this officer works. A lieutenant has been modified, and I don't know if it's in regards to this or some background with this, but this is a scandal brewing. You can't get vetted. So candidate assessment had a problem with 31 cops. Oh, this one, that one. It was all soccer mom because she didn't like Terrell Anderson, the inspector, because she was trying to get even with somebody else. It's all political, but letting people on the job with OnlyFans is okay. That's a good. So that is a good look for the police department. If you're pictured next to Roger Stone off duty, isn't. And also, if you're pictured with Jimmy Rodriguez, it means you're great. I don't know. That's the NYPD, folks. Just so
as Frankie Palaguacci points out here, hiring candidates who test positive for marijuana and admit of use. And that's particularly concerning in New York City and New York State because marijuana just so happens to be legal, right? Like, in other words, if you take an edible or smoke marijuana over the weekend and your next shift is not until Wednesday, it's clear out of your system. So that's why there's been controversies that pertain to marijuana usage. But like, the rise of OnlyFans has been very scary across industries, right? Because whether a woman is working as an accountant, a police officer, a firefighter, whatever it may be, increasingly so, they're looking at OnlyFans as a way to produce revenue pretty quickly because there's a lot of horny, romantically frustrated guys out there, right, who are going to pay money to watch women strip down, do whatever they may do on OnlyFans, right? So this is becoming an increasingly prevalent problem in society, to the point where the police departments need to start taking a look at it, because if you have women who are known more for their OnlyFans career than anything else, when you're walking around, when you're holding press conferences, it's going to be something that generates negative publicity. Guys are going to say, oh, I saw so-and-so who was an OnlyFans actor. She was talking to my friend. He was chatting with her. He gave her a $50 tip. She sent him a photo of her boobs, whatever it may be. And then everyone's like looking around like, wait a minute, she's working as a cop? People question the integrity involved in someone who's doing both of those things at the same time, right? So
I like this one. 92 Charlie said, God forbid you had a speeding ticket back in the day, you were held up getting into the academy. Apparently you could have OnlyFans too. And, and then they come after you 2 years after you're on the job because they have to target an inspector because this person is tied to someone else who the soccer mom doesn't like. And they have unlicensed psychologists and psychiatrists, all this nonsense. But hey, you could have OnlyFans and you could party it with the mob associates, the whole 9 yards. That's okay. Roger Stone, being his friend, not good. Being a Trump supporter back then, not good. Might be good right now. This is the NYPD that you have being run. That's the best way to describe it. Last thing before we leave, Jack, we got a big game tonight. Miami Hurricanes. Oh, yeah. What do we think about that Miami game?
So we have probably the most intriguing matchup of the entire college football playoff tonight between our Miami Hurricanes. They're our local team here in South Florida. The Miami Dolphins, it's weird because the dynamic is as such where the Dolphins are kind of like the D2 college team and the Hurricanes are like the professional team because the Hurricanes have had all the storied players and the success over the years, whole 9 yards. But this matchup is intriguing because Miami's led by two players on offense, and Mark Fletcher and Malachi Toney, who are early in their collegiate playing careers. And they also attended high school locally here in South Florida. So they're kind of leading the charge. The Hurricanes lost 3 games during the regular season. Everyone said they were out of the playoff. Then they go on the road and beat Ohio State, and everyone starts to shut up. And their opponent, Ole Miss, of course, the storyline there is Lane Kiffin leaving the Rebels after the season, going and taking the LSU job, and everyone's kind of rooting for them because they've been on this Cinderella story run where they're riding a magic carpet through the air. Some people think it's going to drop out of the sky tonight, but really fun matchup. I'm predicting a Hurricanes win because I think they have all the momentum in their favor, and the coaching has been really good, especially in the playoffs, and they're peaking at the right time. Yeah,
I also want Miami to win, obviously, because living in South Florida, you have to be a Canes fan. So
it's all about the U, baby.
Yeah, all about the U. So that's what we're about. So hopefully Miami can pull it off when we get to the final. It was a big thing over here. The last game, I was the only one. I was one of few saying we're going to beat Ohio State. Oh, it's not going to happen, and we did. So let's go. Let's go Canes tonight. Let's make sure we get that one. But that's coming up, and of course, there's hockey. There's all kinds of things we'll be discussing later on. I think on Monday we'll be back on. Usually it'd be at 11:05. I might have to start about 30 minutes beforehand because I have something to do. So might be on at 10:30 instead of 11:05, but we will be on Mondays and Thursdays, 11:05 a.m. going forward. That's the Sal Greco Show. You can catch us here on Rumble, the Sal Greco Show on Rumble, and also on X at the Sal Greco. And you could also on YouTube, the Sal Greco Show. And we also have segments, short clips, everything. Don't forget to follow us on TikTok, at the Sal Greco Show, on Instagram at the Sal Greco Show, and obviously on X at the Sal Greco. So without any further ado, I say, Jack, I guess we'll see everybody on the weekend. After the weekend on Monday, there's a lot that we'll be covering on Monday morning, and I hope everyone has a good weekend. I hope all our friends have a good weekend. There's it's just craziness going on everywhere, but cooler heads shall prevail. So we're going to sign off from sunny South Florida, which, as you know, is a sunny place for shady people.
What I'm asking New Yorkers for is to look back at all the things I've done as a deputy commissioner for operations, the assistant as assistant commissioner, and my time as a not only as a New Yorker but as a police officer. I get stuff done.
Listen, there was a book that came out that Jasmine Ray wrote, and in the Daily News today, it stated that there was a sexual action that happened in Borough Hall. She reported in that book. And it wasn't. You're a dark, sick person, man. You know that? You're a dark, sick person. Your name was on the byline. And there's some of you that have been covering me. You guys could part. Let me do this. Y'all could depart. Y'all could depart. Some of you have been covering me for 3.5 years. Some of you are so sick and dark, and you're the leader of that. You're one of the most dark writers that I've ever seen in this city. And your personal sick vendetta and the sickness of how you think of over-sexualizing a black man, that in the book it stated that there was a sexual action in Borough Hall. That was never in the book. But that's typical of the sickness and the darkness of your sick mind. You're one of the sickest reporters I know. Go to the next question. You're a sick person.